My name is Linda Myers. I am 30 years old, and the last thing my mother gave me before I left home was not money, comfort, or even an apology. It was a sentence sharpened into a choice: protect your sister, or get out. I was 18, my bank account had been emptied, and everything I still owned fit inside one black backpack with a broken zipper. My mother stood beside the kitchen table with her arms folded and said, "You're the strong one. You'll be fine." Then she looked past me, toward Vanessa, as if I had already disappeared. I chose the door. For 5 years, nobody in my family called. Not on birthdays, not at Christmas, not when my name appeared in the local paper beside the words nursing scholarship. Then, on a cold Tuesday night in March, the landline number from my childhood lit up my phone. My mother was crying before I answered. She did not ask where I had been, whether I was safe, or how I had survived. She said, "Linda, your sister needs you." What she did not know was that by then, I had learned the difference between being needed and being loved. What I did not know was that Vanessa's problem would lead me back to the same house, the same kitchen, and another child standing near another packed bag. By the time it ended, my mother would call me heartless in a courtroom, my father would finally admit he had failed me, and Vanessa would reveal the truth our family had spent years protecting. But the moment I remember most was quieter than all of that. It was the moment a little girl asked me whether she was allowed to unpack. I grew up outside Columbus, Ohio, in a pale two-story house with green shutters and a framed cross-stitch hanging above the living room sofa. "Family first," it said in blue thread. My mother, Carol, had stitched it during her first pregnancy. For most of my childhood, I thought it was a promise. Later, I understood it was a ranking system. Vanessa was 4 years older than me. She was beautiful in the effortless way that made adults soften when she entered a room. She cried easily, laughed loudly, and seemed to experience every inconvenience as a personal emergency. My parents called her sensitive, teachers called her distracted, relatives called her special. Nobody called her responsible. That word belonged to me. When Vanessa forgot her homework, I was told to remind her next time. When she broke my mother's favorite serving bowl, I swept the pieces. When she quit piano after 3 lessons, my father said she needed space to discover herself. When I asked to stop taking care of her chores during exam week, my mother stared at me as though I had confessed to cruelty. "You can handle more," she always said. "You're stronger." In our house, strength was never freedom, it was unpaid labor with a compliment attached. I learned early that Vanessa's mistakes created work for everyone except Vanessa. My father avoided arguments by disappearing into the garage. My mother solved every crisis by rearranging the lives of the people around her. Since I complained the least, my life was always the easiest one to rearrange. At 15, I started working at Hartman's Grocery. 4 evenings each week, every Saturday, and extra shifts during holidays. I smelled like receipt paper and floor cleaner. My hands stayed dry from handling cardboard boxes, but I loved every shift because each hour had a number attached to it. Numbers were honest. If I worked 6 hours, I earned 6 hours of pay. Nobody could call the money a feeling or explain that Vanessa needed it more. I wanted to become a nurse. Not because I had dreamed about white uniforms as a child, but because the nurses who treated my grandmother during her final illness had spoken clearly when everyone else whispered. They entered frightened rooms and made them orderly. I wanted that ability. I wanted a life where helping people did not require pretending that harm was love. Because I was a minor, my mother had to sign the bank paperwork with me. Her name went on the savings account as joint owner. She smiled at the bank employee and said she was proud of how serious I was. I believed her. That is the humiliating part. Even after years of evidence, some part of me still believed that my hard work would become sacred once it had a dollar sign. For 3 years, almost every paycheck went into that account. Birthday money, Christmas money, overtime, all of it. I skipped school trips. I wore the same winter coat until the lining tore. I watched coworkers buy phones and concert tickets while I studied nursing programs during my lunch break. By the spring of my senior year, I had saved $9,300. Vanessa, meanwhile, had dropped out of community college, married a truck driver named Cole after knowing him for 6 weeks, and given birth to a daughter named Lily. The marriage failed before Lily's first birthday. Vanessa moved into an apartment 15 minutes from our parents, but my parents paid the rent whenever she could not. They bought groceries, covered utilities, and repaired every consequence before it reached her. I loved Lily immediately. She had serious brown eyes and a habit of gripping my finger while she slept. None of this was her fault. That fact mattered then, and it would matter even more later. 9 days before my 18th birthday, I stopped at an ATM after work to deposit my paycheck. The machine returned my card, printed a receipt, and showed an available balance of 0. I checked again, 0. I drove home with the receipt crushed inside my fist, already knowing whose emergency had swallowed my future. For once, I intended to make them say the truth while looking directly at me. The kitchen smelled of lemon cleaner and roasted chicken when I walked in. My mother was standing at the counter, drying a saucepan that was already dry. My father sat at the table with a newspaper open in front of him, though his eyes were fixed on the same paragraph. Vanessa was there too, bouncing Lily on one hip while scrolling through her phone. I placed the ATM receipt beside my father's plate. "Where is my money?" Nobody asked what I meant. That was the first answer. My mother folded the towel carefully and laid it across the counter. Vanessa was behind on rent. All of it? The car payment was late too. Cole stopped sending support. She has a child, Linda. Vanessa finally looked up. Her expression was not ashamed. It was tired, almost irritated, as if my questions were delaying the part where everyone agreed the crisis had been handled. I looked at my father. "You knew?" He lowered the newspaper by 1 inch. "Your mother thought it was necessary." My mother corrected him immediately. "We thought it was necessary." That was how responsibility worked in our house. When a decision succeeded, my mother had made it. When it became ugly, the pronoun changed to we. "You took $9,300. We used family money to protect family. It was my money." My mother's mouth tightened. "You are 18 next week. You have a job. You have options. Vanessa has a baby and nowhere else to turn. I was going to nursing school, and you still can. Maybe not this year, but eventually." Eventually. One word, casually placed over 3 years of work. Vanessa shifted Lily higher on her hip. "I didn't ask her to take it." "No," I said, "you just accepted it." Her face changed then, not guilt, injury. I had violated the family rule that Vanessa's benefit could never be connected to Vanessa's choices. My mother stepped between us. "Do not speak to your sister that way. She is already under enough pressure." I laughed once, a small sound that surprised me. "She is under pressure? Linda." There it was, my name used as a warning. I picked up the receipt and flattened it on the table. "When were you going to tell me?" "At dinner," my mother said. "Tonight?" "When everyone was calm." "You mean after the money was gone?" Her voice became softer, which was always more dangerous than shouting. "You are the strong one. You will recover. Vanessa could lose her home. She could get a job. She has Lily. So do thousands of women." My father folded the newspaper, but he still did not look at me. "That is enough." I turned toward him. "Enough for who?" He had no answer. My mother did. "Enough disrespect under my roof." I went upstairs before anger made me careless. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my phone twice while calling the bank. The customer service representative listened, placed me on hold, and returned with the sentence I already feared. Because my mother was a joint owner, the withdrawal had been legal. She did not need my permission. She did not even need to notify me. The next morning, I called the police non-emergency line from the parking lot behind Hartman's. An officer explained the same thing with less sympathy. Joint owner, legal access, civil matter, no theft. "There has to be something I can do." "You can speak with an attorney," he said, in the tone people use when recommending an expensive door they know is locked. I called 3 attorneys during my lunch break. The first wanted a consultation fee I could not afford. The second said the case was unlikely to succeed. The third spoke to me for 7 minutes and advised me to remove any future money from accounts shared with relatives. Future money. Another phrase placed gently over a grave. By Saturday, I understood that the law would not return what my family had taken. I still believed, foolishly, that shame might. My parents called me into the kitchen after breakfast. Vanessa was not there. Lily was not there. Only my mother, my father, and a typed document centered on the table. The heading read, Family Loan Agreement. For one hopeful second, I thought they had decided to repay me. Then I read the first paragraph. It stated that I had voluntarily given $9,300 to Vanessa as a gift, freely offered, with no expectation of repayment. It also said the money had been used with my full knowledge and consent. A pen rested beside the paper. My mother gestured toward the chair. Sign it, and we can put this ugliness behind us. This is a lie. It protects everyone. It protects you. It protects the family. I looked at my father. Did you write this? He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his coffee mug. Your mother found a form. Do you want me to sign it? His eyes lifted to mine for half a second, then dropped. My mother pushed the pen closer. You are making this harder than it needs to be. You took my savings, and now you want me to say I gave them away. You did give them to your sister. You just did not choose the timing. The sentence was so clean, so completely insane, that my anger settled into something colder. What happens if I refuse? My mother leaned back. The tenderness left her face. Under this roof, we support family. If you cannot do that, then perhaps you should not live under this roof. My father whispered, Carol. She did not look at him, Vanessa, or the door. The choice had finally been spoken aloud, though it had governed my whole life. I stood, left the pen untouched, and went upstairs. This time, nobody followed me. They still believed fear would bring me back downstairs, obedient, grateful, and ready to sign. I pulled the black backpack from the top shelf of my closet and set it on the bed. One zipper worked. The other had lost its metal tab years earlier, so I tied a paper clip through the opening. That bag had carried school books, groceries, work shoes, and Lily's diapers when Vanessa forgot hers. Now it had to carry whatever remained of my life. I packed 2 Hartman's polos, 3 shirts, jeans, underwear, my nursing program brochures, and every document I could find. Birth certificate, social security card, high school transcript, bank statements. The ATM receipt went into the same plastic folder, folded once along the middle. I did not know why I kept it. Maybe because paper was the only witness in that house willing to tell the truth without being corrected. My room looked unchanged when I finished. The posters stayed. The quilts stayed. The trophies nobody had displayed stayed in the bottom drawer. I took one photograph from my desk. Lily at her first birthday, frosting across both cheeks, laughing with her whole body. I left every picture of Vanessa behind. Downstairs, voices moved through the kitchen. My mother was explaining something. My father answered too quietly to hear. I waited for footsteps on the stairs. None came. That silence told me what they expected. They thought I would imagine rent, tuition, and loneliness, then come downstairs ready to sign. My mother had spent 18 years teaching me that resistance ended when fear became expensive. I carried the backpack down. My mother stood beside the sink, wiping the counter. My father was near the garage door with both hands in his pockets. The agreement still waited on the table, the pen placed neatly across it. You are being dramatic, my mother said. I am leaving. For tonight, maybe. No. Her eyes moved to the backpack, and something uncertain crossed her face. It disappeared. Where will you go? I almost answered. Then I understood the question was not concern. She was calculating how long discomfort would take to return me. I will figure it out. You have no idea how hard the world is. You keep telling me I am strong. That landed. My father looked at me. My mother's chin lifted. Do not twist my words. I am using them. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. Your sister has a child. Someday you will understand why I had to choose the person who needed me most. You chose the person who would make the biggest scene. For 1 second, the kitchen became perfectly still. Vanessa appeared in the hallway holding Lily. Her face tightened when she saw the bag. You are seriously leaving over money? I looked at her daughter. Lily had one fist curled in Vanessa's shirt and her other hand reaching toward me. No, I said. I am leaving because none of you believe it was mine. Vanessa rolled her eyes. You always make yourself the victim. My mother touched her arm. Do not upset yourself. Vanessa insulted me, and my mother comforted Vanessa. I crossed the room and kissed Lily's forehead. She smelled like baby shampoo and crackers. When I stepped away, she reached after my hair. You will confuse her, Vanessa said. I wanted to say confusion was already the family inheritance. Instead, I opened the front door. My father followed me onto the porch. The evening was cold enough to turn his breath white. He looked back through the glass before pressing something into my palm. 2 folded $20 bills. Dad, it is all I have on me. You knew what she did. His mouth opened, but the sentence never came. Say something. He stared toward the driveway. Your mother is trying to hold this family together. She is holding Vanessa up with pieces of me. He flinched. I waited for him to deny it, apologize, or ask me to stay. He said, drive carefully. $40 and 2 words. That was everything my father could risk giving me. My car was a 10-year-old Honda Civic I had bought from Hartman's assistant manager. He had insisted the title go in my name because he knew I was saving for school and had overheard my mother asking whether I truly needed a car. Sitting behind the wheel with my backpack on the passenger seat, I understood he had protected the only thing my family could not legally take. I waited for someone to run outside. Nobody did. I drove to Rachel Bennett's apartment. Rachel worked the customer service desk at Hartman's and had listened to me talk about nursing school during closing shifts. When she opened the door and saw the bag, she did not ask for the polite version. What happened? My family spent my savings and asked me to sign a paper saying I gave it away. She stared at me, stepped aside, and said, "The couch folds out." That was the kindness of my adult life, and it came without a speech about family. I slept badly. Every sound in the hallway made me sit up. At 4 in the morning, I checked my phone. No calls. At 6, I checked again. Nothing. By noon, I understood my mother was still waiting for me to apologize. I went to work. For 6 weeks, I slept on Rachel's couch and paid part of the rent in groceries. I opened a bank account in my name alone. My next paycheck looked small inside it, but it was untouched, which made it beautiful. Nursing school was no longer possible that fall. The application deposit, books, transport, and first tuition payment exceeded everything I had left. I allowed myself one night to mourn the timeline. Then I started looking for another route. A flyer on the staff room board advertised a 6-week certified nursing assistant course. It was cheap, exhausting, and accepted payment in installments. I enrolled the next morning. My mother had taken the road I planned. She had not taken the destination. The CNA course began at 7 every morning behind a rehabilitation center. I worked closing shifts at Hartman's, slept 5 hours on Rachel's couch, and spent mornings learning how to lift patients safely. The work was intimate and honest. A person needed help standing, so you helped. Nobody called exploitation love. After 6 weeks, I rented a room from an elderly widow named Mrs. Green. It was narrow, with floral wallpaper and a window facing an alley, but the door locked from the inside. The first night, I turned that lock 3 times because I could. My 18th birthday passed without a call from home. At 19, I completed nursing prerequisites 1 class at a time. I worked mornings at the rehabilitation center and evenings at Hartman's until my body measured time in sore feet. I studied pharmacology in break rooms and anatomy inside my car. When exhaustion blurred my purpose, I opened the plastic folder and looked at the ATM receipt. 0 had become a direction. Every deposit afterward felt less like saving money and more like rebuilding a border nobody could ever cross without my permission again. The nursing program accepted me the following year with a partial scholarship. I read the email in Mrs. Green's kitchen and cried before the second paragraph. She opened sparkling cider and toasted me with mismatched glasses. My parents did not know. Vanessa did not know. Some nights I imagined calling my father and hearing him ask whether I needed anything. I would have said no. I only wanted him to ask. But imagination is generous with people who have never earned it. I never dialed. At 22, I passed my nursing boards on the first attempt. I cried inside my Honda, called Rachel and Mrs. Green, then went to work. The local paper printed my photograph beside the words Linda Myers, registered nurse. 1 copy stayed folded in my plastic folder behind the receipt. Nobody from my family contacted me. 5 birthdays, 5 Christmas mornings, 5 years in which they proved that losing me had not been an emergency. By 23, I was working as a pediatric nurse at Franklin Children's Hospital. I rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment near the east side of Columbus. I told everyone the second bedroom would become an office, but for months it held only a desk, 2 boxes, and an empty bookshelf. From the outside, I looked healed. I paid bills on time, kept my refrigerator full, and never shared a bank account with anyone. Coworkers trusted me. Parents asked for me by name. Children who screamed during injections sometimes let me hold their hands. But I had not escaped my family's definition of love. I had simply transferred it to safer people. I covered every unwanted shift. I answered calls at midnight. I volunteered for difficult patients because being useful still felt dangerously close to being worthy. When another nurse thanked me and said, "You are so strong," my stomach tightened before my face smiled. I knew the pattern. I just did not yet know how to stop repeating it. The call came on a Tuesday in March at 9:40 at night. I had finished a 12-hour shift, showered, and was standing barefoot in my kitchen waiting for tea to cool. My phone vibrated across the counter. The screen showed the landline number from my childhood home. I knew it instantly. For several seconds, I only watched it ring. My body remembered that house faster than my mind did. The kitchen table, the paper, the pen, my father's $40, my mother's voice telling me the world was harder than I understood. The ringing stopped. I exhaled. Then it started again. I answered on the fourth ring without saying hello. My mother was crying. Not delicate tears, full, breathless sobs that made her words break apart. "Linda, thank God. Linda, please." 5 years disappeared from her voice as if they had been a minor misunderstanding. I gripped the edge of the counter. "What happened?" "Your sister needs you." Of course she did. No apology, no explanation for the silence, no question about where I lived, what I had become, or whether I wanted to hear her voice. My name had returned to the family vocabulary because there was another task attached to it. "What does Vanessa need?" My mother inhaled sharply. "It is complicated. She is overwhelmed, and people are making everything worse. You know how sensitive she is." The old script, delivered without revision. "Is Lily safe?" Silence. It lasted only 2 seconds, but nurses learn to hear what people hide inside pauses. "Mother, is Lily safe?" "She is with us." That was not my question. "She is physically fine." Physically. A word chosen to avoid another word. I set the tea down. "Tell me what happened. We should discuss it together. Come home Sunday. Your father will be here. Vanessa will explain. We can handle this as a family." Family. The same word that had emptied my account and closed the door behind me. "What agency is involved?" Her crying stopped so suddenly that the quiet felt mechanical. "I did not say there was an agency. You said people are making things worse. You said Lily is physically fine. Give me the caseworker's name." "Linda, please do not turn this into one of your hospital situations. We only need your cooperation." There it was. Not comfort. Not forgiveness. Cooperation. I looked through the doorway at the second bedroom I had never turned into an office. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" My mother hesitated, then returned to the sentence she had used to control my entire childhood. "You are the strong one, honey. You are the only person who can fix this." For the first time, I heard the sentence without obeying it. "Give me the caseworker's name," I repeated. And when my mother refused, I knew Vanessa's crisis was worse than anything she was willing to say aloud. I ended the call without agreeing to Sunday. At 8 the next morning, I sat in my car outside a grocery store with a notebook on my lap and called Franklin County Children's Services. I gave Lily's full name, Vanessa's address, and my relationship to the child. The receptionist transferred me twice before a woman answered in a voice that sounded permanently tired. "This is Dana Alvarez." I introduced myself and explained that Carol Myers had called asking for my cooperation but refused to describe the case. Dana became careful. "I cannot release confidential information unless you are being considered as a placement. I do not know whether I am. I only need to know if Lily is safe." A pause. "She is currently with relatives." "My parents?" "Yes." "Is Vanessa living there?" Another pause, longer this time. "Miss Myers, are you willing to be assessed as a possible kinship placement?" The question tightened something in my chest. Why would Lily need another placement if she is with my parents? Dana exhaled. "Because their home study has not been approved." I wrote the sentence down. "What happened?" "I can explain the requirements. A parent whose contact is restricted cannot live in the placement home unless the court approves it." Vanessa moved back in. Dana said nothing, which was confirmation enough. "What did she do?" I cannot discuss the full file yet. Was Lily left alone? Silence again. I closed my eyes. How long? Dana's voice softened by 1 degree. You need to speak with your family, or present yourself formally as a placement resource. If you choose the second option, I can schedule an intake. I thanked her, and hung up. My mother called before noon. Her timing told me Dana had contacted her. Why are you speaking to strangers about your sister? Because you would not tell me the truth. There is no truth to tell. Vanessa made one mistake. What mistake? She went out for a few hours, and left Lily alone. She was sleeping. How old is she now? You know how old she is. Say it. My mother's breathing changed. 6. I stood at the nurse's station watching a father carry his sick daughter toward an elevator. He had one hand under her knees, and the other protecting her head. How long was Vanessa gone? She lost track of time. How long? Friday night until Saturday morning. The hallway seemed to narrow. Who found Lily? A neighbor overreacted. Who found her? The police. My grip tightened around the phone. My mother rushed ahead. Vanessa had gone to a casino with a boyfriend. Lily woke up alone, cried, and tried knocking on the apartment wall. A neighbor called emergency services after midnight. Vanessa returned around noon. Child endangering charges followed. The county placed Lily with my parents while investigating. You said your home study failed. It has not failed. Those agency people are being rigid. Because Vanessa lives there. She has nowhere else to go. So you refuse to make her leave. I will not throw my daughter out of her home. The words entered me slowly. 5 years earlier, my mother had put a paper and a pen on the table and told me the door was available if I would not sacrifice myself for Vanessa. Now a court required Vanessa to leave in order to protect her own child, and my mother had decided throwing out a daughter was suddenly unthinkable. I sat down in the empty staff lounge. What do you want from me? Her tone brightened, relieved that we had finally reached the useful part. You have the apartment, the nursing license, the clean background. We put Lily's placement under your name. The county sees the bedroom and checks its boxes. She can still spend most nights here where she belongs. You would hardly have to change anything. You want to use my address. Do not make it sound ugly. You want me to lie to Children's Services. It is not a lie. You are her aunt. She would not live with me. Only on paper. And Vanessa would keep seeing her whenever she wanted. She is Lily's mother. I looked through the glass wall toward the pediatric floor. Children slept beneath warm blankets while machines measured every breath. Safety was not a feeling there. It was a standard, documented and checked. What happens if I refuse? My mother's voice cracked again. Lily could go to foster care. Is that what you want? There was the old machine. Vanessa created the danger. My parents protected Vanessa. Then they placed the consequence in my hands and called it a moral choice. You should have told me everything last night. We knew you would help once you understood. You always do. I ended the call, walked to the parking garage, sat behind the wheel, and laughed until tears covered my face. The clean record they wanted to borrow existed because they had abandoned me. The apartment existed because I had worked after they emptied my account. The license existed because I rebuilt the future they had spent. Every quality they now praised had grown in the space where their love should have been. Their punishment had created their rescue. That was the joke. But Lily was not a punchline. I called Dana from the car. I want the intake, I said. A real placement, full assessment, no paper arrangement. Her pen clicked in the background. Are you prepared for Lily to live with you? I looked at the second bedroom window reflected across my windshield. Yes. And your family understands? No, I said. From now on, verify everything with me directly. Dana scheduled the home visit for Monday morning and warned me that honesty would make the process harder before it made anything safer. I told her difficulty did not frighten me anymore. Darkness did. When I returned upstairs, my tea from the night before was in my locker, untouched and cold. I poured it away. The home study began with fingerprints, pay stubs, references, and Dana Alvarez opening cabinets as if danger might be hiding behind the cereal. She checked smoke detectors, window locks, cleaning supplies, and the distance between my building and Lily's school. I answered every question. When Dana reached the second bedroom, she stood in the doorway and looked at the desk. You said this would be the child's room? Yes. Where will the desk go? The living room. She wrote on her clipboard. Have you discussed this with your family? They think I am lending them an address. Dana stopped writing. I told her the plan my mother had described. Lily registered with me, living mostly with my parents, Vanessa staying in the house, everyone pretending the county's rules had been satisfied. Dana's expression did not change, but her pen pressed harder against the paper. Thank you for telling me. Will it hurt my application? Honesty rarely hurts the right application. That weekend, I moved the desk into the living room. I bought a narrow bed, blue sheets, a moon-shaped lamp, and a small bookshelf. I stood in a department store holding 2 blankets, aware that I knew little about 6-year-old girls except what frightened ones looked like in hospital rooms. On Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for the first time in 5 years. The green shutters had faded, the porch step still tilted left. Through the front window, I saw the cross-stitched "Family First" sign above the sofa, untouched by time or evidence. My mother opened the door, wearing her church smile. Linda, honey. She hugged me before I could decide whether to allow it. Her perfume pulled 18 years into one breath. Vanessa rushed from the hallway and wrapped both arms around me. I knew you would come through, she said. I told them my little sister always fixes things. Not thank you. A job description. My father stood near the kitchen holding a coffee mug. His hair had grayed at the temples. He nodded once, as if we had met last week. Then I saw Lily. She sat at the far end of the sofa, with her ankles crossed, and hands folded in her lap. She had Vanessa's dark hair and serious eyes. She watched every adult without appearing to move her head. My mother began explaining that the county had exaggerated everything. Vanessa said the casino trip had been a misunderstanding. My father said everyone made mistakes. Lily said nothing. I watched her get off the sofa, carry her empty cup to the kitchen, pull a stool toward the sink, rinse the cup, dry it, and return it to the cabinet. Nobody praised her. Nobody offered to help. In that house, a child who needed nothing was considered easy. I had been easy. My mother showed me my old bedroom. Vanessa's clothes filled the closet, and a portable crib was folded against the wall, though Lily had outgrown it years earlier. You can tell the caseworker there is room here, she said. There is not. Her smile tightened. We can rearrange things. Vanessa cannot live in the placement home. She will stay with friends when they inspect. No. The word surprised all 3 adults. My mother lowered her voice. We agreed you would help. I agreed to help Lily. That is what this is. No, this is helping Vanessa avoid consequences. Vanessa appeared behind us. You have been gone 5 years, and now you think you know everything? I know Lily was alone overnight. Her face whitened. My mother stepped between us, not in front of the child. I looked toward the hallway. Lily stood there, silent. She had heard every word. When I prepared to leave, she followed me to the front door. Are you the aunt with the apartment? She asked. I crouched to her level. Yes, I am Aunt Linda. Do you have a room? I have a whole room nobody is using. For how long? The question struck harder than accusation. For as long as you need it. She studied my face, then nodded as though recording a promise she did not trust. The county approved weekend visits while my assessment continued. On the first Saturday, Lily arrived carrying a pink backpack and a duffel. Vanessa dropped her at the curb, honked once, and drove away before I reached the sidewalk. Lily entered my apartment like an inspector. She checked the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and front door lock. Then she asked 3 questions. What food am I allowed to eat? I opened a cabinet. Anything on this shelf, you never need permission. Where do I go when people visit? Nowhere. This is your home while you are here. What happens if I break something? I handed her a plastic cup. Things break, we clean them up. She turned the cup over. Do people yell? Not for accidents. She dropped it. The cup bounced across the floor. I picked it up and returned it. 1. She dropped it again. 2. By the 8th drop, the corner of her mouth lifted. That night I found her asleep on top of the blanket, still wearing jeans and a sweater. Her shoes stood beside the bed, with their toes pointed toward the door. The pink backpack was under her arm. I did not move anything. The next morning, while she watched cartoons, I vacuumed beneath the bed. The vacuum struck something solid. I knelt and pulled out the backpack. It was zipped closed. Inside were 2 folded outfits, a toothbrush sealed in a sandwich bag, raisins, and a stuffed rabbit with one worn ear. Lily stood in the doorway behind me. "I keep it ready," she said. "Ready for what?" Her voice was calm. "So it does not hurt as much when people forget me somewhere." I remained on my knees, holding the same kind of bag that had carried me out of childhood. This time, I was not leaving. I was deciding who would stay. I zipped the backpack and returned it beneath the bed exactly where Lily had placed it. "Thank you for telling me," I said. She watched my hands. "Are you mad? At you? Never. At mommy?" I chose the answer carefully. "I am worried about choices adults made. That is different from being angry at you." She accepted that with a small nod and returned to the cartoon. I sat beside the bed after she left, staring at the pink zipper. At 18, I had packed because nobody intended to keep me. At 6, Lily packed because she had learned nobody's promise lasted. I wanted to empty the bag, throw away the raisins, place the rabbit on her pillow, and announce that she was safe. But frightened children do not trust announcements, they trust patterns. So I left the bag alone. Over the next 4 weekends, I built patterns. Breakfast appeared daily. Her toothbrush stayed in the same cup. The blue sticker shelf stayed full. I told her before leaving any room, and returned when I said I would. When I worked a short Saturday shift, Rachel watched her, and Lily knew the schedule before I closed the door. Slowly, details came out. Vanessa had left her alone before the casino night, sometimes for an hour, sometimes until morning. Lily knew which neighbors kept their televisions loud, which floorboard near the apartment entrance creaked, and how to push a kitchen chair beneath the doorknob. She could prepare cereal, toast, and cheese sandwiches. She was forbidden to use the stove when alone. She said this proudly. That pride broke something in me. I kept my voice neutral and asked open questions, the way hospital training required. I suggested nothing and interpreted nothing. I wrote down her exact words afterward, with dates and times. Then I made the call I knew would turn my family against me permanently. As a nurse, I was a mandated reporter. As Lily's aunt, I was already too late. Dana answered on the second ring. I told her everything. The county arranged a child interview with a trained specialist. Lily repeated the details in a room with soft chairs and colored pencils. She did not cry. She described being left overnight, with the same tone she used to explain where cereal belonged. The case changed. Vanessa's visitation became supervised. Parenting classes were added. Substance screening and counseling were required. My parents were prohibited from arranging private contact. 2 weeks later, Dana called during my lunch break. "Your home study is approved." I closed my eyes. "Lily can be placed with you full-time on Friday." For 5 years, every important call had delivered a task. This one delivered a child, and made me the adult I had once needed. Friday afternoon, Lily arrived with 2 duffel bags, a cardboard box of school supplies, and the pink backpack strapped tightly across both shoulders. Dana carried the paperwork. My mother carried nothing. She stood in the hallway while Dana reviewed emergency numbers, medical consent, and visitation rules. Vanessa had not come. When Dana finished, my mother smiled at Lily. "This is temporary, sweetheart. You will be home soon." Lily looked at me. I looked at my mother. Do not promise her dates nobody has approved. Her smile disappeared. I am trying to comfort my granddaughter. Then tell her the truth. Dana closed her folder but remained in the room. My mother lowered her voice. You have become very cold. No, I have become specific. She left without hugging me. That night, Lily asked whether she should unpack the duffel bags. Yes, I said. What about the backpack? That is your choice. She unpacked the duffels. The backpack stayed beneath the bed. At 11, my phone began ringing. My mother called first. What did you tell them? The truth. You made Vanessa sound dangerous. Vanessa left a 6-year-old alone overnight. One mistake does not erase motherhood. No, but protecting the mistake can endanger the child again. My mother's voice sharpened. You have always wanted to punish your sister. I stayed away for 5 years. Punishment would have been easier. She hung up. Vanessa called next. She screamed until I lowered the volume. You stole my daughter. The county placed her here. Because of what you said. Because of what you did. She went silent. Then her voice softened. Linda, I was struggling. You know what mom is like. You know how she raised us. For one moment, I heard the exhausted girl beneath the woman. The sister who had been praised for helplessness until helplessness became her only skill. I do know, I said. Then help me. I am helping Lily. No, help me. Tell Dana the other nights were misunderstandings. Say Lily gets confused. Nurses know children exaggerate. The sympathy inside me vanished. You want me to call your daughter a liar? I want you to protect this family. That sentence already cost me $9,300 and a home. You survived. There it was again. My survival presented as permission. Yes, I said. And Lily should not have to prove she can. Vanessa began crying. You think you are better than me. No, I think she deserves better than both of us were given. She ended the call and launched the family campaign by morning. Aunt June messaged that blood should never be dragged into government business. 2 cousins accused me of using Lily for revenge. My mother told relatives I had abandoned the family at 18 and returned only to take Vanessa's child. My father said nothing. The silence still hurt deeply, but it no longer controlled me. 3 months later, just as Lily began sleeping beneath the covers instead of above them, the elementary school called. The secretary sounded cheerful. Miss Myers, we are confirming that Lily was picked up early by her mother. My hand went numb around the phone. Vanessa was authorized for supervised visits only, and nobody knew where she had taken Lily. I did not run through the hospital screaming. I stepped into an empty supply room, closed the door, and made 3 calls in order. First Dana, then the police, then the school principal. I gave Vanessa's car model, license plate, phone number, possible addresses, and the visitation order. I used the words unauthorized removal and supervised contact because panic is useless unless translated into language a system recognizes. Then I waited. 4 hours can contain an entire lifetime when a child is missing. At 4:10, I imagined Lily crying in the passenger seat. At 5, I imagined Vanessa driving toward another state. At 5:45, my mother called and accused me of frightening everyone. She is with her mother, she said. Stop behaving as though she was kidnapped. Where are they? Vanessa is calming down. Where are they? She needed time with her daughter. I ended the call and gave the number to the officer handling the search. At 6:38, he called back. They had found Lily and Vanessa at Eastland Mall. They were sitting in the food court with a pretzel, shopping bags, and a new stuffed bear. Vanessa had apparently expected the outing to prove she was still a good mother. When the officer brought Lily to my apartment, she walked past me without speaking, entered her bedroom, and pulled the pink backpack from beneath the bed. She returned hugging it to her chest. The new bear remained inside a plastic bag by the door. I knelt in front of her. You are safe. She looked toward the hallway. Is Mommy coming back tonight? No. Tomorrow? Not without Dana arranging it. Her fingers tightened around the straps. She said we were going home. This is home for now. For now, she repeated. That phrase was the problem. Dana arrived after 9. She spoke with Lily privately, reviewed the police report, and then sat across from me at the kitchen table. This changes the case, she said. Temporary placement is no longer enough. What does that mean? As long as Lily remains under temporary county placement, every review reopens the question. Vanessa can demonstrate short periods of compliance. Your parents can petition for a family arrangement. The court can revise conditions. Lily could spend years living in 90-day pieces. I looked toward the bedroom. The door was open. The backpack rested beside Lily on the bed. What is the alternative? You petition for legal custody. I understood the words, but not yet their full weight. Dana explained that I would become a party to the case, rather than an approved address. I would need an attorney, an affidavit, testimony, and evidence. Vanessa would have the right to challenge me. My parents could intervene. Everything our family preferred to keep private would become part of a court record. And if I do nothing? Dana's voice stayed flat. Children in unstable temporary placements learn not to unpack. That was the answer. The next morning, I called a legal aid office and met attorney Ruth Okafor 2 days later. Ruth wore a charcoal suit, read every page twice, and wasted no words. You have a strong placement record, she said. The harder issue is motive. Their attorney will argue this is retaliation against your sister. It is not. I believe you. The judge will need facts. I brought the plastic folder to our second meeting. Inside were the ATM receipt, showing 0, old bank statements, the unsigned gift agreement, nursing school correspondence, and the newspaper clipping announcing my license. Ruth spread everything across her desk in chronological order. You kept all this? I left home with it. Why? Because I knew they would eventually tell the story differently. She studied me for a moment. Then we will tell it first, under oath. My affidavit contained no insults. Ruth would not allow them, and neither would I. It listed dates, amounts, and exact statements. $9,300 withdrawn. A false agreement presented. Housing conditioned on signing. 5 years without contact. My mother's request to use my clean record and address. Vanessa's repeated neglect. The pink backpack. The unauthorized school pickup. Writing my childhood as numbered paragraphs was worse than remembering it. At night, I sat at the kitchen table after Lily slept and watched 18 years shrink into exhibits. The pages looked light. My hands knew they were not. One evening, I passed Lily's room and found her asleep beneath the blanket, one arm hanging over the mattress. Her shoes were inside the closet instead of pointed toward the door. The backpack was still under the bed. I returned to the table and finished the affidavit. Before signing, Ruth looked at me carefully. Once this is filed, your family cannot pretend this dispute is only about Vanessa's mistake. You are documenting a pattern in the entire household. That is the truth. It may end any possibility of reconciliation. I thought about my mother's first phone call in 5 years. Not where are you? Not forgive me. Your sister needs you. There was no reconciliation, I said. There was another assignment. I signed. The petition was filed on a Wednesday. By Thursday morning, my phone filled with messages. Aunt June called me sinful. Cousins called me jealous. My mother called me dangerous. My father came to my apartment alone. He stood in the hallway holding his cap and staring past me at Lily's drawings on the refrigerator. I know taking your money was wrong, he said. The admission reached me 5 years late and carrying a request. Then say that in court. His eyes dropped. Your mother cannot lose both daughters. She already chose which one she could lose. He placed an envelope on the table and left. Inside were 2 $20 bills. $40 again, the exact price of his courage. I added the envelope to the plastic folder. This time I would not carry their silence alone. I would enter it into evidence and make every person in that courtroom hear it. 8 days before the hearing, Vanessa hired an attorney. My parents paid for him. Ruth called me into her office and slid a settlement proposal across the desk. Vanessa would stop contesting legal custody. I could become Lily's permanent guardian without a trial. Then Ruth tapped the second page. In exchange, Vanessa gets unsupervised visitation immediately, and you withdraw the affidavit. All of it? All of it. The bank account, the agreement, the eviction, the 5 years of silence, your mother's placement plan, everything. They want custody settled and the family record erased. Yes, I read the proposal twice. Nothing mentioned Lily's backpack, the casino, or the mall. This is not an easy offer to refuse, she said. You get custody without risking the judge's decision. And Vanessa gets unsupervised access. Correct. Starting when? Immediately after signing. I pictured a Friday afternoon, a boyfriend, a promise to return before dark, Lily watching a locked door, and the pink backpack pulled from beneath the bed. No, Ruth did not argue. Think overnight. That evening, my mother called. Her voice was dry and gentle. No tears, no anger. That was how I knew she had prepared. Linda, sweetheart. The word reached a place in me I hated for still existing. She described Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, family photographs, and Lily hanging a stocking beside mine. She said my bedroom was still available whenever I visited. She promised Vanessa would follow every rule. My father would cook pancakes. Aunt June would stop interfering. We could begin again. All I had to do was remove old grievances from the public file. Families should not need judges, she said. They need one person mature enough to let the past go. For 12 years, I had wanted the warmth she described. Now my mother opened the door and offered everything I had once begged for. Truth. This time, Lily would pay it. So we will see you Thursday, my mother said. You will sign before court. I will see you Thursday. I ended the call before she noticed what I had not promised. The morning of the hearing, Franklin County Juvenile Court looked smaller than the fear surrounding it. Fluorescent lights buzzed above blue plastic chairs. Families whispered beneath a dusty flag. Lily was at school with Maya's mother scheduled for pickup. Whatever happened, Lily would not sit in a courthouse listening to adults debate whether she deserved permanence. Ruth stood beside me in gray. Dana carried 2 folders. Vanessa arrived wearing a floral dress and holding my mother's hand. My father followed in the dark suit he wore to funerals. He did not look at me. Before entering the courtroom, both attorneys met in a conference room. The settlement waited on the table with a pen placed across the signature line. My mother sat opposite me. For one moment, she did not look manipulative or angry. She looked tired and hopeful. Vanessa's attorney cleared his throat. "Miss Myers, are you prepared to accept the agreement?" The ventilation system hummed. Ruth's pen hovered over her pad. My father stared at the table. "No," I said. My mother's face changed. "The affidavit stays. If my family wants the truth discussed, we will discuss it under oath, in daylight." Vanessa whispered, "You selfish." Her attorney touched her arm. We entered the courtroom. There was no jury, and no dramatic music. Only a judge, a court reporter, attorneys, files, and questions asked slowly enough that every answer could become permanent. When Ruth called me, I raised my hand and swore to tell the truth. I testified in dates and numbers, the joint account, $9,300, the false gift agreement, the ultimatum, 1 backpack, 5 years without contact. Then my mother's call, Vanessa's neglect, the address scheme, Lily's disclosures, the home study, and the unauthorized pickup. Finally, I described the pink backpack. 2 outfits, a toothbrush, raisins, a rabbit with 1 worn ear. I repeated Lily's sentence exactly. I keep it ready so it does not hurt as much when people forget me somewhere. The courtroom went silent. Vanessa's attorney stood for cross-examination. "Is it not true that you have resented your sister since childhood?" "I resented what was done. That is not the same as wanting her harmed. And this petition is not revenge? If I wanted revenge, I would have stayed away. Staying away was easy." He asked whether I thought I was a better mother than Vanessa. "I am not asking the court to grade us. I am asking it to protect Lily." Then he suggested I had always competed with my sister for attention. Vanessa suddenly stood. "She never had to compete," she shouted. "She was the strong one. She was always supposed to fix everything." Her lawyer pulled her down, but the sentence had already entered the record. The judge looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. My family's entire system had testified against itself. Near the end, the judge removed his glasses. "Miss Myers, you are 23, unmarried, and beginning a demanding career. Why are you asking this court to give you responsibility for a child?" I looked once at my parents, then I answered. "All my life, strong meant the person who paid for everyone else. I paid with money, opportunities, and years. Lily does not need another strong person who absorbs damage quietly. She needs someone who stays when staying becomes inconvenient." The court reporter's keys clicked. "I am not asking because I believe I can rescue everyone," I continued. "I am asking because one child should be allowed to unpack without wondering who will send her away next." My mother stood. "You were born cold, Linda," she said. "Keep the child. You have taken everything." The judge ordered her to sit. She picked up her purse and walked out instead. My father followed. At the doorway, he looked back once. I did not follow them. For the first time, the person leaving was not me. The judge granted legal custody that afternoon. Vanessa's visits remained supervised, with parenting classes, counseling, and monthly reviews written into the order. The court left her a path back, but it was a path she would have to walk herself. Nobody could carry her anymore. Outside, rain darkened the courthouse steps. I sat in my car with the order on the passenger seat and cried for 90 seconds. Then I drove to Lily's school because dismissal did not pause for family history. She climbed into the Honda, dropped her backpack at her feet, and asked, "Did the judge say I can stay?" "Yes." "For how long?" "As long as you need me." She studied my face. "Even if I am difficult?" "Especially then." She nodded and asked what we were having for dinner. Vanessa attended 2 visits in December, 1 in January, and then began missing them. My parents sent a single card. My mother wrote that they were ready to forgive me whenever I apologized. I placed it inside the plastic folder behind the ATM receipt. I never answered. Months later, on an ordinary Tuesday, Lily carried the pink backpack into the living room and unzipped it on the floor. She placed the folded clothes in her dresser, moved the toothbrush to the bathroom, set the raisins on her blue sticker shelf, and carried the worn rabbit to her pillow. Then she hung the empty backpack on her bedroom door. I stood at the stove pretending the spaghetti required all my attention. "You do not have to be the strong one here," I told her. "You do not have to be fragile either." She looked confused. "Then what do I have to be?" "Lily." "Okay," she said. "Can I have more noodles?" 7 years have passed. Lily is 13 now. She argues about curfew, leaves wet towels on the floor, and believes every reasonable rule is evidence of oppression. Every ordinary complaint feels like victory. The pink backpack carries swimming clothes now. She packs it because she wants to go somewhere, not because she fears being left behind. My father died 2 years ago. In his wallet, Vanessa found a folded newspaper clipping about my nursing license and my address written beneath it. He had known where I was all along. Knowing was never his problem. Choosing was. My mother still tells relatives I destroyed the family. Perhaps I did destroy something. I destroyed the rule that love must be purchased with silence. I destroyed the idea that surviving harm makes someone responsible for absorbing more. And I ended the inheritance of packed bags. My family kicked me out at 18 because they believed I would always be fine. They were right about one thing. I became fine. But I stopped becoming fine for them. If someone calls you strong while handing you their consequences, remember this. Strength is not endless payment. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is close the account, protect the innocent, and finally choose yourself.